All right, so today's video we're going to take a look at the magic Q button on the SSL console. The Q button stands for query. Query is a function that allows us to get around really fast on the console. We have a lot of faders, a lot of channels, a lot of buses that are spread over all the different fader banks and layers and stuff. And so query allows us to be able to jump right in and see exactly what's feeding a VCA or exactly what's feeding a stem or where a channel is going, what different output buses it's being fed to. So if I query a bus, I get to see all the different channels that are coming to it. So for instance, in-ear monitors, things like that. If I hit query, it shows me all the channels that are being fed to that in-ear monitor. Or I can go the other way and query a channel. And then when I do that, it shows me all the different in-ear mixes that that channel is going to. So let's take a look at that now. If I come over here to, say, wireless 1 raw, this is our lead vocal, and raw means that it's unprocessed, it's not going through any auto-tune kind of features or anything like that, so it's kind of unprocessed. So if I hit query on this channel, you'll notice that over here it shows me all this pink means that these are output auxes. These are aux sends. So now I see Brad ears 1, I see Connor ears 2, ears 3, ears 4. So I've got 8 different in-ear belt packs, and this is how much of wireless 1 raw is going out to each of these auxes. Okay, so I can see how much of Brad, that wireless 1 raw, each in-ear belt pack is listening to. Okay. So that's great. If I come over here, let's say we go to our, let's go to, I don't know, piano. So I go to my rhythm bank over here, and there's piano. So I hit query on that. It's again going to show me everywhere that's going. Now, the way this is set up currently, what I'm going to see is in this middle tile, I see that it's going out to my record mix, and it's going out to the instrument verb. These are both stems, and I can see how much piano I'm sending to each of these stems. Okay. Then if I come over here, so basically it's showing me stems on this tile, and it's showing me auxes on this tile. So again, I get to see how much piano I'm sending to each one of my aux outputs. Okay. Now one thing you have to watch though is I've got 12 faders here. My piano is going out to more than 12 auxes. So you'll see my bank selectors over here. Auxiliary 1 through 12 output, master 1 output. If I come back to this fader tile, you'll see stems 1 through 3 or auxiliaries 13, 15, 24 through 25. Okay? So what that's telling me is this one channel, my piano, is going out to 2 stems. So it's showing me all the stems right here. But then it's also going out to at least 12 auxes. So if I come back over here to this fader tile and I press this button, it's going to show me the rest of the auxes that it's going out to. So I'm going to 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 different auxes with that piano channel. So remember that you kind of have to pay attention to your bank selections here. You may have to press through these to see every place that this is going. So again, if I come over here, aux out 1 through 12 and master output, if I hit call on that, I see that it's also routed out to my main house output. Okay, so be sure and pay attention to your bank selections here. So I'm going out, here's kind of the spill, so I'm going to 16 auxes, but it can only show 12 at a time, and then it spills over onto this next tile that's available. Second bank down. Bank 1 is showing me my stems. Bank 2 in this case is showing me the spill from the rest of my auxes over to here. Okay. Now, I'm going to release the query on that. There are a couple of ways to do that. I can release it by hitting Q again, and that releases the query, so it frees up these other fader tiles back to my regular mix layers again. Or I've created a shortcut as well. So if I come over here and I hit query on piano, now up here on my master section, I've got some user buttons that I can define up here. And what I've done is I've assigned the small 0 to be query release. So no matter where I am, I can hit 0 and it releases all my queries. Okay? So let's say I query again the piano, and then for some reason I go to a different bank somewhere. So now I've got stems from a channel somewhere, and I've got auxiliary masters from a channel somewhere, but I've now lost track of the original channel that I've queried. So I've put this shortcut up here. This 0 will clear any query that I have on the console. Okay, let's take a look at all of this going the other direction. Okay, so now let's say I'm over here, and this is the tile. Fader tile 3 is one we typically use for most of our outputs, meaning if I come over here and select outputs, vocal in-ear monitors, band in-ear monitors, effects, and main outs. So let's say I go to my vocal in-ear monitor bank, I select that, and now I'm seeing all of my wireless in-ears. Okay, so in a rehearsal, maybe Brad, in-ear 1, says, hey, can you give me a little more acoustic guitar? So I'd go to the in-ear monitor bank, I would hit query on Brad's in-ear mix, and then over here on the rest of the console, these other two fader tiles, it's showing me all the stuff going to his in-ears. So if he asked for more acoustic guitar, I look over and I see acoustic guitar. This is the amount of acoustic guitar he's listening to. He needs a little more, so I bump that up. Okay. Then as soon as I'm done, I can come back over here and I can release the query. Or again, remember there's the shortcut up here. If I hit this small 0, it releases the query and I'm back to my regular mix layers. Okay. There are a couple of things I'm doing here though. There's some shortcuts. So right now I've got the console set up where if I press query, it will also solo and select that channel. So if I hit query and I grab my headphones, I now am listening to this aux bus. So a best practice is put the headphones on before you make an adjustment to someone's in-ear mix. Put the headphones on, and then when you hit query, you're going to be hearing what they're hearing. That way you know how much to adjust a send. Okay? So let me say that again. If you're going to be adjusting someone's in-ear mix, best practices are put the headphones on first so that when you press query, you don't make some really crazy adjustment and blow their eardrums out. When you press query with the headphones on, you will be listening to their in-ear mix. Okay, when I release query, it turns that solo and that select back off. That's a great shortcut there. Okay, so let's say that, again, this in-ear mix, this person wants to hear the mouth harp that we have mic'd up. We don't do that. But if we did, and it's not currently assigned to him, I can go into query assign mode. Now, if I press and hold the Q button, it starts to flash, and then over here on the rest of the channels, you'll see that the select button starts to flash if I have assigned that channel to that bus. So if we wanted to add this channel, Rick's guitar, to Brad's in-ear mix, I would then hit select, and it's now in the bus. And then I adjust how much send we send out to that in-ear mix. So press it again and it releases it. So remember, press and hold query puts you in assign mode. Now, if we wanted to send, say, the brass left and right mics, we press select on those, they start to flash, and it sends them over here to this in-ear mix. Okay, I'm going to turn those off so it doesn't mess anything up later. Press Q again to release the query. That's how we assign to that. The same thing works the opposite direction. If I come over here to an input, say brass left, if I press and hold query, these other fader tiles switch over and they show me everywhere that that channel is going to. So I can press select and add the brass left mic to these in-ear mixes and then bring up the level for them. Okay, so I press Q to release that, and now I'm back to my regular mix layers. One last thing that's important to know on the query is that there are two versions of query. So if I come up here in the console and I go to Menu, Setup, and then I choose Surface, there's a pretty feature-rich section here where I get to determine what happens when I press solo, when I press select, or when I press query. And then up here in this section under query setup, I can pick from either compressed or expanded query. Now, what is the difference? The difference is that compressed query, when I query, say, an in-ear mix, if I'm set to expanded query, this will leave all the faders where they normally are. So if I'm over here on my main vocal bank and that person asked for, I needed more of the horn mics, okay, when I press query, I don't see the horn mics. I don't see that they're going to him. I have to go find those on whatever bank and layer. So I find this and I see that, oh, that mic, brass left, is not going to that in-ear mix. Okay? This expanded query leaves all the faders where they normally are. The alternative is, if I come up here instead, I'm just playing with the auxes right now. So under auxes, if I press compressed, now when I press query on that aux, all the faders move and it shows me only the information, only the channels and stems that are going to that bus. This is great once I've gotten everything set up and we know that he's getting what he needs. Now I can just hit compressed query and it shows me only the things going to that in-ear mix. The downside of this is that all of the faders have moved. I don't know, normally my brass right is right here, but right now this is Brad's guitar. So it's showing me a smaller subset of just the stuff going to that output bus. There are times when that's the best way to go. I would argue that if we're doing, I'm going to set that back to expanded again. If I go to a channel, you can see I've got that set to compressed. So if I query a channel, the other two fader tiles will show me only the outputs and buses that that channel is going to. Okay, so I'm not really looking for where all of my faders normally live. This is not a muscle memory thing if I'm querying a channel. But I'm used to mixing on this layer and this layer and this layer, and I need to make an adjustment to an in-ear mix. If I press query on that, I want these faders to normally be where they normally are. So I know where to find my piano channel, okay? So that's the difference between compressed and expanded query. Whether it leaves all the faders in place, that's expanded, or compressed is where it shows me only the channels that are assigned to that bus or that channel. Okay, here are two more neat features about the query function. Same thing, I'm in Menu, Options, Surface. If I have Query to Focus Fader turned on, then my focus fader right here, when I press query, it takes whatever channel or fader that I have queried and moves it up here onto my focus fader. What that means is that now I get to see 1, 2, 3. I get to use all 3 of my fader tiles for what's going to that master. Okay, so if I've got something like Brad's in-ears right here, and I've got a lot of stuff going there. If I press query and query to focus fader is turned on, then it takes this fader and moves it up there onto the focus fader. Now I'm using I'm using all 3 of my fader tiles to see what's going to that aux bus. So that allows me to use all 3 fader tiles if query to focus fader is turned on. Last thing, and this is fairly new, is a feature called Screen Query. So if I come up here to Menu, down to Screen Query, now I get a selection of buttons across the top up here. You can see I can select channels, stems, auxes, masters, VCAs. Okay, so if I come over here to auxes, and now I touch any of these faders, or these buttons up here, so ears 4, if I touch ears 4, this again uses all 3 fader tiles to let me spill out the contributions for that aux. So if I've got a lot of stuff going, Screen Query is a fast way to be able to see everything, or close to everything, all at the same time. Press it one more time, that releases it. So if I'm setting up a rehearsal and we've got kind of a raw in-ear mix that we need to get going real fast, screen query is a fast way to do this. So Brad, ears 1, and I come in here and I assign everything to him and I bring up the levels. I release it, go to ears 2. What do you need? And I make his adjustment. Release that, go on down the road. Okay. Now, one thing that's nice is I don't necessarily have to burn my entire screen here to do that. If I've got an iPad handy, I can do the same thing over here on an iPad. So that allows me to come back over here, go to my regular channel view, but then over here on my iPad, I can do ears 3, and that queries, and it lets me use all 3 fader tiles. That's screen query. I can do that with auxes or stems. Let's say I want to adjust how much reverb is on each of my vocalists, so I go to my stems and vocal verb. Touch that, and this shows me all the different channels that are going out to my vocal verb stem. It allows me to adjust how much each one of those is getting. I can see that down here on the right end of the console, we're also sending the vocal reverb to some of the in-ear mixes. Pink is auxes, blues are stems. Okay, so I can come over here, release that. Now remember, if I hit instrument verb and I see where I'm sending channels to the instrument reverb, remember I can still hit the 0 up here to clear the query also. All right, so that's query. You can see there's a lot to it, but it's also very powerful. It allows you very quickly to get from your input channel, show me everywhere it's going, show me all the aux mixes and things that it's going to. You can also go the other direction. You can look at an output, like an in-ear mix, query that, and it shows you all the channels that are coming to it. So you see all the contributions to that. This works with a VCA, so I've got a VCA set up for my drums. If I query that, then it shows me all the mics, all the channels that are going into that VCA. So we didn't really look at that, but the VCAs, the stems, the auxes, they all work the same. If I hit query, it shows me just the stuff that's going to that VCA, stem, or aux. Okay? So there's query.